Hey there and welcome. Today we're jumping into a medical mystery that honestly affects an incredible number of people: chronic low back pain. For so many, it's this frustrating, long-running, unsolved case. So let's dive in and see if we can crack it. This quote from licensed acupuncturist Warren Miles. Wow, it just hits you, right? We're not talking about a little ache you get after a long day. We're talking about decades of suffering, of trying treatments that just don't work. The stakes here are just incredibly high for real people. And look, this isn't just one person's story, not by a long shot. We're talking about a global health crisis. Our source material points to 619 million people around the world dealing with low back pain. It is the #1 cause of disability on the planet. Think about that. So let's frame this the right way. We are officially opening an investigation into a 20-year pain mystery. Why do so many treatments seem to fail, and what is everyone missing? Now this is where the plot really thickens. The US alone throws over $100 billion a year at this problem. $100 billion. You'd think with that kind of money, we'd have it figured out, right? But for so many people, like the ones Warren Miles sees, the pain just goes on and on. That is the central puzzle we're trying to solve. So this huge gap between the money we spend and the results we get, it leads us to a pretty critical turning point in our investigation. The argument here is that maybe, just maybe, conventional medicine has been looking for clues in the completely wrong place. And this slide lays it out perfectly. The usual approach is to focus on the crime scene, the exact spot where it hurts. You get MRIs of that spot, injections in that spot. You're managing this symptom. But what if the real answer is to look for the culprit, to uncover the root cause, the whole biomechanical story of how your body got here in the first place? That's a huge shift. Okay, so if we're not just staring at the crime scene, where do we look? Well, this is where our investigation pivots to the body's hidden imbalances, the real culprits that often get missed. So what is it? What's the missing piece of the puzzle that could finally crack this case wide open for so many people who feel like they've tried everything? Okay, our first major clue is something called sacral rotation. So the basic idea is that the sacrum, that triangular bone at the very base of your spine, it's designed to be in a very specific optimal position. When that gets knocked out of alignment even a little bit, it starts a whole chain reaction of problems up the line. And culprit number 2, it's a muscle that most of us have never ever heard of, the iliacus. It's this deep hip flexor that gets crazy tight from all the sitting we do all day. And when it gets tight, it literally starts yanking your pelvis out of position, totally destabilizing the foundation of your lower back. And here's the real kicker. This is what makes this muscle such a villain in our story. You can't just do a simple quad stretch or hamstring stretch to fix it. It's too deep, too stubborn. And that's exactly why this problem can hang around for years, causing all this chaos that no amount of foam rolling is gonna solve. Now, our third clue is maybe the most surprising of all, because it's literally built into our own wiring. Our nervous system is naturally asymmetrical. The two halves of our brain create these predictable postural patterns. That's totally normal. But when that natural imbalance gets exaggerated, it can pour gasoline on the fire, making all the other problems even worse. So, you put all this together, and what do you get? Well, take a look at this. It turns out that sacroiliac joint dysfunction, which is so often caused by these exact imbalances we're talking about, is responsible for up to 30% of all chronic low back pain cases. And the wildest part? It's one of the most frequently missed diagnoses out there. All right, so we've identified our main suspects. Now let's talk about the solution. How do you actually go about fixing this? This is where a very specific, targeted approach using acupuncture comes into play. The solution laid out here is a really clear 2-phase plan. It's a 1-2 punch, because it's not enough to just fix one thing. First, you've got to rebalance the muscles that are pulling everything out of whack. Then, you have to actually heal the joint that's been taking a beating from all that instability. So step 1 uses something called motor point electroacupuncture. This is like sending in a special ops team to get at those deep, chronically tight muscles, like our friend the iliacus. By getting that muscle to finally let go, you can directly correct the pelvic tilt that's at the heart of the problem. Then you move on to step 2, which is all about healing. A specific low-frequency stimulation is used to encourage the ligaments in that sacroiliac joint to regenerate. This is an absolute game changer, especially for people who are hypermobile, whose ligaments are a bit too loose. It helps strengthen and stabilize everything for the long haul.
So what does this all add up to for someone who's actually living with chronic pain every day? Well, it means we can finally start asking completely new and way more effective questions.
And this quote just says it all. You have people who've been suffering for 20 years, who've tried everything under the sun, and they finally get relief because someone looked past the symptom and addressed the true structural root cause. The solution was there all along. They just needed to ask the right questions to finally find it. And these are the questions. Instead of just asking, where does it hurt? The whole conversation shifts. We start asking, is my sacrum where it should be? Is my iliacus muscle pulling my pelvis out of line? Is my SI joint unstable? See, these questions lead you down a totally different path to a real solution. So I guess the big takeaway from all of this is simple but really powerful. If you've been chasing pain for years without any real answers, maybe the most important thing you can do is just change the question you're asking.
I stopped trying to find a doctor who would listen, and I did this instead. For years, I was doing everything right. Eating clean, exercising, getting 8 hours of sleep, but I was still exhausted. I had constant brain fog, and my hormones felt completely out of whack. Every doctor told me my labs were normal, and it was probably just stress. I was about to give up until I found Holistic Health. It's a free AI wellness tool trained by functional medicine experts. I spent 5 minutes answering questions about everything: my symptoms, my sleep, my digestion, and it built me this. And this was the light bulb moment. It didn't just give me a list of problems, it connected the dots. It showed me how my gut health was likely impacting my hormones and how that was causing the fatigue and the brain fog. It even gave me a clear list of potential root causes, supplements to research, and even the specific lab tests to ask for. Its tip is secure. Over 77,000 people have used it, and it's 100% free to get your blueprint. If you feel like you're not being heard, start here. Understand your body first and then decide your next step.